The Georgia Judicial Qualifications Commission hearing room smelled of old wood and newer tension. Marcus Thompson stood before seven stone-faced commissioners wearing clothes that didn't match the authority in his posture, a thrift store jacket with a torn pocket work pants, stained at the knees boots that had seen too many courthouse floors. His hands hung loose at his sides, not fidgeting, not defensive, just still. Commission Chair Bernard Hayes, 73 and white-haired, peered over reading glasses with the expression of a man who'd seen every courtroom trick. Mr. Thompson, you filed this complaint against Judge Linda Harrington, but I see you're not dressed appropriately for these proceedings. Marcus met his gaze without blinking. I'm dressed exactly as I've been dressed for the past 3 months, Your Honor, as a janitor at Fulton County Family Court. Across the room, Judge Linda Harrington sat beside her attorney, a man in a $1,500 suit who looked like he billed by the breath. The attorney half rose. This is highly irregular. Who is this man? What standing does a maintenance worker have to? That's part of what I'm here to explain. Marcus reached for his jacket. The bailiff's hand moved toward his holster habit. Nothing personal, but Marcus wasn't pulling a weapon. He pulled out fabric. Black fabric that unfurled as he lifted it, revealing the distinctive robes of a federal appellate judge. He draped them carefully over the empty chair beside him. The room went silent in the way rooms do when reality shifts without warning. My name is Marcus Allen Thompson. For the past 3 months, I've worked as a janitor at Fulton County Family Court under the name Marcus Jackson, but that's not my actual occupation. His voice carried the same measured calm it always did, whether sentencing a defendant or reading bedtime stories. I'm a United States Circuit Judge for the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. I've served on the federal bench for 8 years. Before that, I practiced civil rights law for 12 years. Harrington's face drained of color, like someone had opened a valve. Her attorney's mouth worked soundlessly. A court reporter's fingers froze over her stenography machine. Bernard Hayes removed his glasses slowly. You went undercover in a state family court. Yes, Your Honor. Why? Marcus pulled a 3-ring binder from the bag at his feet. 237 pages organized with the precision of someone who'd built cases that changed constitutional law. Because 3 years ago, my younger brother Jerome Thompson appeared in Judge Harrington's court seeking custody of his 6-year-old son. The hearing lasted 2 minutes and 17 seconds. I know because I timed it from the gallery. He opened the binder. The first page showed a photograph, Jerome smiling, holding a little boy with gap teeth and cornrows, both of them laughing at something outside the frame. My brother was a good man, stable job at the post office, loving parent, no criminal record. But the social worker report painted him as aggressive and unstable. Judge Harrington barely looked at his evidence before awarding custody to the mother. Marcus turned the page. A death certificate. Jerome Marcus Thompson, age 38, cause acute myocardial infarction. 18 months ago, my brother died of a heart attack. He was 38 years old. The stress of losing his son contributed to his death. The medical examiner's report cited chronic hypertension brought on by, his voice caught just slightly, just enough to be human, by sustained emotional distress. The silence in the room had weight now. I went undercover to determine if what happened to Jerome was isolated or systemic. Marcus closed the binder. It's systemic, and I have 237 pages of evidence to prove it. Bernard Hayes leaned forward. What kind of evidence? Statistical analysis of 73 cases over 6 years, individual testimony from 12 fathers, financial records showing kickback schemes between the court and social services agencies, and a 30-year paper trail proving this isn't new, it's institutional. Harrington found her voice thin and shaking. This is entrapment. He deceived the court. Any evidence gathered is admissible. Marcus's interruption was gentle but absolute. Federal judges conducting authorized investigations aren't subject to fruit of the poisonous tree doctrine, and this investigation was authorized by Chief Judge Patricia Williams of the 11th Circuit. The freeze frame held Marcus standing in janitor clothes with federal robes draped beside him. Harrington, realizing her career was over, 7 commissioners trying to process what they just heard. Then the image rewound. 3 months earlier. Morning light hit Marcus's kitchen in Druid Hills the way it had every morning for the past 4 years, Golden through east-facing windows, warming the counters where Keisha used to make coffee while humming off key. The humming was gone. The coffee maker still worked. Marcus cracked eggs into a bowl while his daughter Maya sat at the table 8 years old and too observant for anyone's comfort. She'd inherited her mother's gap-toothed smile and her father's ability to read a room. Right now, she was reading him. "You have your thinking face." He whisked the eggs. "I'm making breakfast. That requires thinking. Your big case thinking face. The one where you get all—" She made her own face go serious, eyebrows down, jaw set. "I don't look like that." "You do. Grandma Pat says you look like that even when you were little, when you were planning something." Marcus poured eggs into the skillet, watched them sizzle. "You remember Uncle Jerome?" Maya's expression shifted the way children's faces do when adults mention someone who isn't there anymore. "He gave me the stuffed bunny, the purple one." "That's right." Marcus stirred the eggs, giving himself something to focus on besides a tightness in his chest. "Uncle Jerome lost something important to him. Someone took it away, and it wasn't fair. Jaden, his son. 8 years old, and she remembered. Of course she did. Maya forgot nothing that mattered. Yes, and today I'm starting something that might help make sure that doesn't happen to other families. Like Mama used to do when she helped people at the hospital." The mention of Keisha still landed like a punch, wearing velvet gloves. 4 years, and Marcus could talk about his dead wife in past tense without his voice breaking, but only just. Like that. Sometimes you have to fight for what's right even when it's hard. Your mom taught me that. He plated the eggs, added toast at breakfast in front of his daughter. Maya picked up her fork but didn't start eating. "Is it dangerous?" "No, baby, just important." "Will you be gone a lot?" Marcus sat across from her, this child who'd lost her mother at 4 and handled it with more grace than most adults managed. "I'll be working different hours for a while. Grandma Pat is going to pick you up from school some days. But I'll always come home." "Promise?" "Promise, Buans." Maya nodded, satisfied, and started eating. Marcus watched her, memorizing the moment his daughter in morning light, safe and whole, believing her father could keep his promises. He intended to keep this one. After he dropped Maya at school, Marcus drove to the federal courthouse in downtown Atlanta. His chambers occupied the 8th-floor corner office with a view of the city spreading south toward the airport. 8 years he'd worked from this office, writing opinions that set precedent, shaping the law's slow evolution toward justice. Chief Judge Patricia Williams was already waiting when he arrived. 67 years old, the first black woman appointed to the 11th Circuit, and the person who'd mentored Marcus from a nervous first-year associate to federal judge. She sat in the chair across from his desk like she owned it, which in a sense she did. Senior status or not, Patricia Williams owned every room she entered. "You're sure about this?" No preamble. They discussed it for 3 weeks, but she was giving him one more chance to back out. Marcus hung his jacket, sat down. "Jerome never got justice. How many other fathers are we failing? Going undercover is risky. If something goes wrong, if you're discovered before you have enough evidence, then we hand what I've gathered to the DOJ and they take it from there." Marcus pulled up a file on his computer, turned the screen toward Patricia. "But it won't come to that. I've been planning this for 18 months. The screen showed a complete identity package. Marcus Jackson, 42, employment history as custodial worker at 3 different Atlanta buildings, references background check. All of it manufactured with the help of the U.S. Marshal Service, who owed Marcus favors from cases where his rulings had protected their witnesses. Patricia studied the file. "You've thought this through." "I've thought about nothing else since Jerome died." "What did you tell Maya?" The question landed where it was meant to, in the soft part of Marcus's resolve where his daughter lived. "That I'm helping families," which is true. "Half true. You didn't tell her you'll be mopping floors and emptying trash for 3 months while investigating judicial corruption." "She's 8. She doesn't need the details." Marcus closed the laptop. "But she knows it's important. That's enough." Patricia stood, moved to the window, looked out at the city. From this height, Atlanta spread like a promise. Highways and buildings and lives being lived in the spaces between. "If you find what you're looking for, if there's evidence of systematic discrimination, we're not just ending one judge's career. We're exposing institutional failure. The county will fight back. Hard. Let them fight." Marcus's voice carried the edge it only got when someone questioned his courage. I watched my brother lose his son because a judge looked at a black man and saw a threat instead of a father. I watched Jerome die, knowing his child was growing up without him. If there are other families going through that, if there's a pattern, I'm going to find it. And if there isn't, if Harrington's treatment of Jerome was just one bad day, one wrong call, then I'll have spent 3 months as a janitor and we'll move on. Marcus met Patricia's eyes, but we both know that's not what I'm going to find. Patricia returned to her chair, pulled a document from her briefcase. Official letterhead, her signature at the bottom. Approved leave of absence, 3 months personal sabbatical. Your caseload will be redistributed. When you come back, you'll have enough work waiting to keep you busy for a year. Worth it. I hope so. Patricia set the letter on his desk. Marcus, I'm authorizing this because I trust your judgment, but I need you to promise me something. What? If it gets dangerous, if they figure out who you are before you're ready to reveal it, you pull out immediately. No heroics. This case isn't worth your life. Marcus thought about Jerome dead at 38. Thought about Jaden growing up without his father. Thought about Maya, who'd already lost one parent and couldn't afford to lose another. I'll be careful. That's not a promise. It's the best I can offer. Patricia sighed, but she didn't push. They'd worked together long enough for her to know when Marcus's mind was made. When do you start? Monday. I've already been hired. Night shift janitor at Fulton County Family Court, 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. 5 days a week. Night shift. Smart. You'll be able to clean the courtrooms after hours, review case files that get left out, observe without being observed. And I'll be there when Judge Harrington arrives early to prep for her docket. 6:30 a.m. every morning, she's in her chambers going through the day's cases. Marcus had researched Harrington's habits with the thoroughness he brought to everything. I'll see which cases get her attention and which ones she rushes through. Patricia stood, extended her hand. Marcus shook it. Her grip was firm, a reminder that she'd fought her own battles to get where she was. Good hunting, Judge Thompson. Thank you, Chief Judge Williams. After she left, Marcus sat alone in his chambers. The law books lining the shelves represented decades of precedent cases where the system worked, where justice prevailed, where the careful architecture of constitutional rights protected the vulnerable. But for every case in these books, there were hundreds where the system failed, where judges brought their biases to the bench, where families were destroyed by decisions made in minutes. Marcus pulled a photograph from his desk drawer. Jerome and Jaden at the aquarium, both of them pressed against the glass of the Shark Tank, identical expressions of wonder on their faces. He'd taken this photo 5 years ago, back when his brother's biggest worry was whether his son would eat vegetables. He set the photo face down and got to work. Fulton County Family Court, 2 weeks later. The courthouse basement smelled like industrial cleaner and bureaucratic despair. Marcus pushed his janitor cart down the hallway at 6:47 a.m., the wheels squeaking with each rotation. He'd oiled them once, but Mr. Reynolds, the facility supervisor, had told him to stop wasting maintenance supplies. Squeaky wheels reminded people that janitorial staff existed. Marcus wore navy blue work pants with reinforced knees, a matching shirt with Jackson embroidered over the pocket, and boots that pinched his left foot. His federal judge salary was $230,000 a year. This janitor disguise cost him $23 at a thrift store, and it was the most expensive investment he'd ever made. Courtroom 4B waited at the end of the hall, dark and silent. Judge Linda Harrington's domain. Marcus had spent 2 weeks cleaning this building, learning its rhythms, becoming invisible, in the way custodial workers always were. People looked through janitors like they looked through windows, registering their presence without really seeing them. He unlocked the courtroom with the master key Reynolds had issued him. The space opened up, cathedral-like wood-paneled walls rising to a ceiling that swallowed sound. The judge's bench dominated the front, elevated 3 feet above where attorneys stood. Symbolic, Marcus knew. The entire architecture of courtrooms was designed to reinforce power dynamics. Judges above lawyers, in the middle litigants below. He'd spent 8 years sitting behind benches like this one. Now he emptied the trash cans beneath them. Marcus worked systematically. Dust the gallery pews, vacuum the carpet, wipe down the counsel tables, empty the trash. Simple work, meditative almost, except he wasn't meditating. He was observing. The case files stacked on the clerk's desk, The calendar posted by the door showing today's docket, 9 hearings scheduled between 9 a.m. and noon. 20 minutes per case, theoretically. But Marcus had been watching for 2 weeks, and he knew theory rarely matched reality. He pulled out his phone, opened the note-taking app hidden behind a game icon, and photographed the docket. 9 cases. He zoomed in, reading names. Rodriguez versus Rodriguez, Williams versus Williams, Henderson versus Henderson, Grant versus State, Patterson versus Patterson, Chen versus Chen, Morrison versus Morrison, Jackson versus State, Taylor versus Taylor. One of those cases was his. Jackson versus State. Petition for visitation rights by Marcus Jackson, his undercover identity seeking to see a nephew who didn't actually exist. Except the child did exist and the case was real. Marcus had convinced a colleague from his civil rights attorney days to file the petition using a real custody dispute from a family willing to help the investigation. The mother had agreed to play along. The child would never be affected, but the hearing would be real and Harrington's response would be documented. Marcus finished cleaning and moved to the next courtroom. By 7:15 a.m., he was pushing his cart past Judge Harrington's chambers when he heard her voice through the door. "Told you to bury that complaint, Felix. Why is it still showing up in commission reviews?" A man's voice responded, accented, measured. Felix Okonkwo, the court administrator. Marcus had researched him too. Nigerian immigrant, 30 years with the county, responsible for scheduling, case assignments, personnel decisions. The complaint was filed directly with the state commission. I couldn't intercept it. Then handle it at the commission level. You have friends there. Linda, I've handled complaints before, but this one has documentation. Statistical analysis of your case outcomes over. I don't care what it has, make it go away. Marcus kept pushing his cart, expression neutral. Just another janitor who didn't speak English well enough to understand what he was hearing. But he understood perfectly. And he was recording every word on the phone in his shirt pocket. At 8:30 a.m., Marcus changed clothes in the basement locker room. Off came the janitor uniform, on went the thrift store suit he'd stashed in his locker. Gray, slightly too large, the kind of suit unemployed men wore to custody hearings when they were trying to look respectable on a budget. He finger-combed his hair, made sure his shoes were tied, checked his reflection. He looked like someone who was losing. Perfect. The courthouse started filling with people. Attorneys in expensive suits, carrying leather briefcases. Parents in their Sunday best faces, tight with anxiety. Children being dragged along because childcare was expensive and family court didn't wait for convenience. Marcus joined the flow, another face in the crowd, another father hoping the system would be fair. Courtroom 4B's gallery was already half full when he entered at 8:50 a.m. Marcus sat in the pie row watching people filter in. He spotted her immediately, Rosa Martinez, the court clerk. 32 years old, Latina, single mother of a 7-year-old boy. Marcus had been watching her too because Rosa watched everything. She noticed patterns, she took notes. And 2 days ago, she'd left a file folder on the copy machine with a post-it note that read, Disparities in Case 4B, Outcomes 2018-2024. Someone who documented disparities was someone Marcus needed to know. Rosa moved through the courtroom with practiced efficiency, setting up files, checking the court reporter's equipment, placing water pitchers at the counsel tables. When she passed Marcus's row, their eyes met. Just for a second. She handed him a case file. Good luck, Mr. Jackson. Her voice carried something Marcus couldn't quite parse. Sympathy recognition warning. Thank you, ma'am. At exactly 9:00 a.m., the bailiff called the court to order. All rise. The Fulton County Family Court Judge Linda Harrington presiding is now in session. Everyone stood. Harrington entered from her chambers, black robe, flowing, 58 years old and carrying herself like someone who'd never been questioned. She settled into her chair, surveyed the courtroom with the expression of a woman reviewing inventory. Be seated. First case, Rodriguez versus Rodriguez. The morning proceeded with mechanical efficiency. Cases called. Parents stood. Harrington listened or didn't listen. Decisions made. Next case. Marcus timed each one on his phone hidden in his lap. Rodriguez, 4 minutes 32 seconds. Williams, 2 minutes 9 seconds. Henderson, 6 minutes 41 seconds. Grant, 1 minute 53 seconds. He watched Harrington's face during each case, cataloging the micro-expressions. Warmth for Henderson, a white father seeking joint custody. Impatience with Williams, a black father presenting evidence of stable employment. Interest in Rodriguez, Latino father with attorney representation. Dismissiveness toward Grant, black father without lawyer. At 10:47 a.m., the bailiff called Marcus's case, Jackson v. Ton State, regarding petition for visitation rights. Marcus stood moved to the front of the courtroom. His hands didn't shake. His voice stayed level. 8 years as a federal judge had taught him how to project confidence even when the odds were stacked. But he deliberately left his expertise at the door. Today he was Marcus Jackson, janitor, trying to navigate a legal system he didn't fully understand. Your Honor. He stood at the podium, no attorney beside him representing himself, because that's what poor fathers did. I'm here to request visitation with my nephew. I've been his primary caregiver since. Harrington didn't look up from her papers. Are you the biological father? No, Your Honor, but I've been from petition denied. Biological parents have priority. Next case. Marcus's carefully planned presentation died in his throat. The entire hearing had lasted 42 seconds. Your Honor, if I may present evidence of my stable home environment. Harrington's head snapped up, eyes cold. I said denied, Mr. Jackson. You're taking up the court's time. Bailiff, next case. Your Honor, I have witness statements, proof of employment, character references. Mr. Jackson. Harrington's voice dropped to the register judges used when patients expired. I've made my ruling. If you continue to argue, I'll hold you in contempt. Do you understand? Marcus understood perfectly. He understood that his brother had stood in this exact spot 3 years ago and received this exact treatment. He understood that the tremble in his hands wasn't fear, but fury controlled and cold. He understood that if he pushed any further, Harrington would have him removed and his investigation would end before it began. Yes, Your Honor, I understand. He returned to his seat in the gallery, hands clasped to hide their shaking. Rosa glanced at him from the clerk's desk, something like apology in her expression. The bailiff called the next case. Henderson versus Henderson, regarding modification of custody arrangement. Marcus already knew what would happen. He'd seen Henderson in the hallway, white mid-30s, wearing khakis and a button-down shirt. Similar socioeconomic background to Marcus's janitor persona. Similar petition, different skin color. Henderson approached the podium. Harrington's entire demeanor changed, posture, relaxed voice warming. Mr. Henderson, please explain your relationship with the child and why you are seeking modification. Your Honor, I've been denied visitation for the past 6 months due to a scheduling conflict in the previous order. I'm requesting the court modify the arrangement to allow for every other weekend custody and Wednesday evening dinners. Do you have evidence of your ability to care for the child during these periods? Yes, Your Honor. I prepared documentation of my apartment, lease employment verification, and character references from Please submit those to the clerk. I'll review and issue a ruling by end of day. Harrington smiled, actually smiled. It's important that children maintain relationships with both parents. I appreciate you making the effort, to Mr. Henderson. The hearing lasted 5 minutes and 43 seconds. Henderson received everything Marcus had been denied. Same petition, same circumstances, different outcome. Marcus sat in the gallery watching Harrington congratulate Henderson on being a responsible father. The courthouse clock showed 10:53 a.m. He checked his phone's recording, the entire morning's proceedings captured in high-definition audio. Evidence that would mean nothing without context, without pattern, without proof that this wasn't isolated, but institutional. He needed more. He needed data. He needed someone who'd been watching as long as he had. At noon, Harrington recessed for lunch. The courtroom emptied quickly, attorneys rushing to their next hearings, parents either celebrating or grieving depending on outcomes. Marcus waited until only a few people remained, then approached the clerk's desk. Rosa Martinez was organizing files, her movements precise and economical. She looked up when Marcus approached and something passed between them. Recognition, maybe, or calculation. That was unfair. Her voice stayed low, professional. What happened in there? Marcus matched her tone. Has it happened before? Rosa glanced toward Harrington's chambers, checking if they could be overheard. I've worked in this court for 6 years. What happened to you? It's not the first time I've seen it. Seen what patterns? She pulled a file folder from beneath her desk, handed it to him. Take this. Read it somewhere private. Then we should talk. Marcus accepted the folder. It felt heavy, weighted with more than paper. Why are you giving this to me? Rosa's expression hardened. Because my cousin lost custody of his daughter in this courtroom. 2-minute hearing, judge barely looked at his evidence. And because I have a son, and I'm terrified the system will fail him the way it failed my cousin. She turned back to her work, conversation over. But the folder in Marcus's hands felt like a key turning in a lock. He slipped it into his bag and left the courtroom, walked to his car in the parking garage, sat behind the wheel. Inside the folder, 6 years of case summaries organized by date and outcome. Hearing durations highlighted, custody decisions annotated with race of litigants, statistical breakdowns showing average hearing times 2.3 minutes for black fathers, 5.1 minutes for white fathers. Success rates 11% custody granted to black fathers, 48% to white fathers. Rosa had been documenting everything. Marcus pulled out his phone, called Judge Patricia Williams on a secured line. She answered on the first ring. How did the hearing go? Exactly as predicted. 97 seconds petition denied, no opportunity to present evidence. And the pattern, it's there. Rosa Martinez has 6 years of documentation, statistical analysis showing systematic discrimination. Marcus flipped through the folder, seeing his brother's name on one of the case summaries. Jerome Thompson versus Thompson. Hearing duration, min 17 hours, outcome custody denied. Patricia, it's worse than we thought. This isn't one judge making bad calls, it's institutional. The court administrator is involved. The social services agency filing the reports is complicit. This is a conspiracy. Patricia's silence on the other end carried weight. Finally, if you're right, if this is coordinated discrimination, we're not just talking judicial misconduct. We're talking federal civil rights violations, RICO statutes, DOJ involvement. I know. Marcus, that kind of case requires ironclad evidence. You have documentation, but you need more. Witnesses, financial records, proof of intent. I'll get it. Marcus closed the folder, started the engine. Rosa is already helping. And I think there are other people in this courthouse who've noticed. I just need time to find them. How much time? 2 months, maybe less. Marcus pulled out of the parking garage, heading toward the elementary school to pick up Maya. Patricia, when I blow this open, when we present this evidence, it's going to be national news. The kind of case that destroys careers. I know, which is why you need to be absolutely certain before you go public. Patricia's voice softened. How's Maya? She misses me. I'm working nights, sleeping odd hours. She knows something's happening, but not what. Children are resilient. That's what people always say, usually right before they traumatize them. Marcus merged onto the highway traffic, thick with lunch hour exodus. But she's strong, like her mother. Patricia let that sit for a moment. Then Keisha would be proud of what you're doing. Keisha would tell me I'm being reckless and obsessive. Marcus smiled despite everything. And then she'd help me anyway. That's who she was. That's who you are too. After they hung up, Marcus drove to Maya's school. He was 20 minutes early, so he sat in the pickup line and reviewed Rosa's files again. Case after case, father after father. Black men denied basic access to their children because a judge looked at them and saw threat mob instead of love. His phone rang. Unknown number. Marcus almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Marcus Thompson. He used his real name out of habit, then froze, realizing his mistake. The voice on the other end was calm, measured with a Nigerian accent that Marcus recognized from the conversation he'd overheard that morning. Judge Thompson, this is Felix Okonkwo. I think we need to talk. Marcus's blood went cold. Felix knew. Somehow Felix knew who he really was. I don't know what you're talking about. The denial came automatically, but it sounded weak even to Marcus's ears. Don't insult my intelligence. A janitor who cites family law statutes with appellate-level precision. Who files visitation petitions with the technical accuracy of someone who's reviewed thousands of legal briefs. Felix's voice stayed cordial, almost friendly. I've been a court administrator for 30 years. I know when someone doesn't belong. Marcus said nothing. Across the parking lot, parents were starting to line up for pickup. Maya would be out in 15 minutes. He needed to end this call before she got in the car. Felix continued, I also know you've been talking to Rosa Martinez. I know she gave you files. I know you're building a case. If you know all that, why are you calling me? To offer advice. Man-to-man immigrant, too. Well, I assume you came from somewhere, too, even if it was just the other side of town. Felix's tone shifted, took on texture of shared understanding. I came to America with nothing. Worked my way up from janitor, real janitor, not federal judge, pretending to court administrator. I sent 3 children to college. Built a life. I did that by understanding how systems work. And how do they work? They work when people cooperate, when they understand that fighting the system only destroys the fighter. Felix paused. I know about your brother, Jerome. I'm sorry for your loss, but pursuing this investigation won't bring him back. It will only destroy your career and hurt your daughter. The mention of Maya made Marcus's hands tighten on the steering wheel. Did you just threaten my child? I'm pointing out reality. Federal judges who go on crusades tend to make enemies. Those enemies tend to look for vulnerabilities. And single fathers with 8-year-old daughters, they're very vulnerable to custody disputes, especially when they're working odd hours, conducting dangerous investigations, putting themselves at risk. Marcus's voice went flat, the tone he used when sentencing someone who'd hurt children. If anything happens to my daughter, nothing will happen to her, as long as you stop this investigation. Felix's cordiality vanished, replaced by steel. Go back to your federal bench. Be a good father. Forget what you saw in Harrington's courtroom. Everyone wins. Except the families you've been destroying for 30 years. Families adjust. Children are resilient. But federal judges who lose their daughters because they couldn't protect them, that damage doesn't heal. Felix let that sink in. You have 48 hours to decide. Drop the investigation or deal with the consequences. The line went dead. Marcus sat in his car shaking with rage and fear in equal measure. Felix had just threatened Maya, not directly, not in a way that could be prosecuted, but clearly enough that Marcus understood. Continue investigating and they'd come after his daughter. Find a way to question his fitness as a parent. Maybe even try to remove her from his custody. The same thing they'd done to Jerome. The school bell rang. Children poured out of the building, running toward waiting cars. Marcus spotted Maya in her purple jacket backpack bouncing as she ran. She saw his car wave, sprinted toward him, with the unself-conscious joy of children who still believed their parents could protect them from everything. Marcus waved back, forcing a smile. Maya climbed into the back seat, chattering immediately about a science experiment with vinegar and baking soda. He drove home on autopilot, half listening to her enthusiasm, the other half of his mind calculating moves and countermoves. Felix had made a mistake. He'd revealed the conspiracy went deeper than Marcus had imagined, deep enough that they'd threaten a federal judge's daughter to protect it. That kind of desperation meant they were afraid, and people who were afraid made mistakes. Marcus just needed to make sure he documented those mistakes before they could hurt Maya. That evening, after Maya was asleep, Marcus called Patricia Williams again. They know who I am. Felix Okonkwo called me this afternoon, threatened to go after Maya if I don't drop the investigation. Patricia's response came quick and decisive. Pull out, now. We hand what you have to the DJ and no. Marcus, they threatened my daughter Patricia, the same way they've been threatening black fathers for 3 decades. If I run now, if I let them scare me off, then Jerome died for nothing. All those fathers lost their children for nothing. Your daughter's safety is exactly why I'm continuing. Marcus's voice shook, not with fear, but with certainty. Maya deserves to grow up in a world where the courts protect families instead of destroying them, where judges follow the law instead of their prejudices. If I back down now, I'm teaching her that bullies win. Patricia was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice carried resignation mixed with respect. What do you need? Security for Maya. Full protection. I want her staying with you for the next 2 months. Armed marshals if necessary. Done. What else? Access to DOJ resources. I need financial investigators, forensic accountants, someone who can trace the money between the court and Peachtree Family Services. If there's a kickback scheme, I need documentation. I'll make calls. And Patricia, Marcus looked toward Maya's bedroom where his daughter slept, surrounded by stuffed animals and picture books. If something happens to me, if they manage to silence me, somehow I need you to finish this. Promise me you'll see it through. Nothing's going to happen to you. Promise me anyway. I promise, Patricia's voice carried the weight of a vow. But Marcus, you need to promise me something too. When you're ready to go public, when you have enough evidence to destroy these people, you do it right. Legal, documented, unassailable. No shortcuts. No vigilante justice. We bring them down through the system, proving the system can work. I promise. After hanging up, Marcus opened his laptop and created a new encrypted folder. Inside, he compiled everything he had so far. Rosa's 6 years of documentation, his own recordings from the courtroom, photographs of case files, the statistical analysis showing systematic discrimination. It wasn't enough yet, but it was a start. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. He opened it expecting another threat from Felix. Instead, it was Rosa Martinez. There's more. Things my mother documented before me. Meet tomorrow 7 a.m. Waffle House on Ponce de Leon. Come alone. Marcus replied, I'll be there. He set the phone down, stared at his computer screen. The folder contained evidence of injustice, but it also contained something more dangerous: hope. Hope that the system could be fixed. Hope that families could be reunited. Hope that his brother's death would mean something. Outside Atlanta settled into its nighttime rhythm. In her bedroom, Maya dreamed of science experiments and purple bunnies. In courtrooms across the county, case files waited for morning hearings. And somewhere in a corner office, Felix Okonkwo was probably making plans to destroy Marcus before Marcus could destroy him. Let him try. Marcus had spent 8 years as a federal judge learning patience, strategy, and the long game of justice. He'd spent 12 years before that as a civil rights attorney learning how to fight systems designed to crush the vulnerable. And he'd spent a lifetime as a black man in America learning that survival required both strength and cunning. Felix thought he was fighting a janitor. He was about to learn he'd picked a fight with a federal judge who had nothing left to lose except his daughter, and Marcus would burn the entire corrupt system to the ground before he'd let them take her. The folder on his screen held 73 documented cases. Tomorrow, Rosa would give him more. In 2 months, he'd have everything he needed to expose 30 years of systematic discrimination. Then the real fight would begin. The Waffle House on Ponce de Leon smelled like coffee and griddle grease at 7 in the morning. Marcus sat in a corner booth back to the wall, out of habit, watching the door. He'd arrived 20 minutes early, scanned for surveillance, confirmed no one was watching. Old habits from his civil rights attorney days, when clients sometimes got followed by the people they were suing. Rosa Martinez arrived at 7:02 a.m., carrying a canvas shopping bag that looked heavy. She slid into the booth across from him, without greeting, without small talk. Just set the bag on the seat beside her and met his eyes. My mother worked as a court clerk for 32 years, started in 1986, retired in 2018. She kept files. Rosa's voice stayed low, calibrated for privacy in a public space. Not just notes, copies, full documentation of cases she thought were wrong. A waitress approached, poured coffee without asking. Rosa waited until she left before continuing. When I got hired as court clerk in 2018, my mother told me to watch. She said the system was broken, had been broken her whole career, but she didn't know how to fix it. So she documented everything, hoping someone would care enough to do something. Rosa pulled a USB drive from her pocket, set it on the table. This is 30 years of case files, over 800 cases where custody outcomes didn't match the evidence presented. Marcus picked up the drive, felt its weight in his palm. Why give this to me now? Because Felix called my supervisor yesterday. Suggested I might be using court resources inappropriately, accessing files without authorization. Rosa's jaw tightened. They're building a case to fire me, which means they know I've been helping you, which means we're running out of time. Felix called me too, threatened to go after my daughter if I don't drop the investigation. Rosa's eyes widened. Your daughter? How old is she? 8. Her name's Maya. Marcus tucked the USB drive into his jacket pocket. I'm moving her to a safe location today. Federal protection. Jesus. Marcus, Rosa stopped, shook her head. I don't even know what to call you. Are you really a federal judge? 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. 8 years on the bench, 12 years as a civil rights attorney before that. Marcus met her gaze. I went undercover because my brother lost custody in Harrington's court 3 years ago. 2-minute hearing, no opportunity to present evidence. He died 18 months later. Heart attack at 38. Rosa's expression shifted from wariness to understanding. You're doing this for him. For him, for the other families, for my daughter, so she grows up in a world where courts protect people instead of destroying them. Marcus leaned forward. Rosa, if you help me with this, if we expose what's been happening, your career in this courthouse is over. They'll never let you work there again. Good. I don't want to work in a building where judges throw away families like garbage. Rosa pulled documents from the canvas bag, spread them on the table. My mother kept everything. Case files, hearing transcripts, social worker reports, internal memos. Look at this. She pointed to a memo dated March 1994, Fulton County Court Administration letterhead. Marcus read, RE Efficiency Standards for Family Court Proceedings. All judges are reminded that case processing speed affects state funding allocations. Average hearing duration should not exceed 4 minutes to maintain current caseload capacity. They were incentivizing judges to rush through cases. Faster hearings meant more cases processed, which meant more state funding. Rosa flipped to another document, and this one from 2001. Then they started partnering with social services agencies. Peachtree Family Services got an exclusive contract to provide custody evaluations. Look at the language. Marcus read the contract language. Contractors shall provide evaluation services in accordance with county preferences and judicial efficiency standards. County preference, Rosa's voice carried disgust. That's code for give us the outcomes we want. And Peachtree delivered. For 23 years, they've been filing reports that give judges justification for predetermined decisions. Marcus photographed every document, his phone uploading to encrypted cloud storage in real time. This is federal conspiracy, RICO statutes, pattern and practice civil rights violations. I know, that's why I'm giving it to you. Rosa gathered the documents, returned them to the bag. But Marcus, you need to understand something. This isn't just about Harrington and Felix. This is institutional. The entire county family court system has been operating this way for decades. When you expose it, you're not just ending careers. You're threatening a bureaucracy that processes 20,000 cases a year. Let it be threatened. How many of those 20,000 cases were decided fairly? Probably more than you think, but the ones that weren't, Rosa's voice caught. My cousin's daughter is 12 now. She barely remembers him. He gets supervised visitation twice a month, has to pay a supervisor $75 each time. That's $150 a month just to see his own child for 4 hours. Marcus did the math. $1,800 a year. For 6 years, that's $10,800. And he's not alone. Multiply that by 800 families over 30 years. Rosa met his eyes. This isn't just about injustice. It's a business. Someone's been profiting from separating children from their fathers. The waitress returned, topped off their coffee. Marcus waited until she left again before speaking. I need names, fathers who'd be willing to testify, ones who can articulate what happened, who kept documentation, who won't fall apart under cross-examination. I can get you 12, maybe 15. Rosa pulled out her phone, scrolled through contacts. Most of them have given up. They paid child support, did supervised visitation, watched their kids grow up from a distance. But a few are still fighting, still angry enough to go public. Set up meetings. I'll interview them, get sworn statements, build individual case files for each one. Marcus checked his watch. But we need to move fast. Felix gave me 48 hours to drop the investigation. That was yesterday evening. What happens when the deadline passes? He escalates, probably tries to discredit me, maybe leaks my real identity before I'm ready to reveal it. Marcus considered the angles. Or he goes after you, claims you stole confidential files, violated privacy regulations, broke union rules. Rosa's smile carried no humor. Let him try. I've been union steward for 3 years. I know every regulation, every protection, every procedure. If they want to fire me, they'll have to do it publicly, which means documentation, which means discovery, which means I get to subpoena their communications about why they're really firing me. You've thought this through. I've been preparing for this conversation since 2019, when I realized the patterns my mother documented were still happening under my watch. Rosa picked up the canvas bag. There's more where this came from. Meet me tomorrow night, same time, but different location. I'll text you where. After she left, Marcus sat alone finishing his coffee. The USB drive in his pocket felt like a loaded weapon. 30 years of evidence, 800 families, millions of dollars in supervised visitation fees, child support enforcement court costs. His phone buzzed. Text from Judge Patricia Williams. Maya secure. My house 2 marshals on rotation. She thinks it's a sleepover adventure. Marcus typed back, thank you. How long can we maintain security? Patricia's response came immediately. As long as necessary, DOJ is interested in your findings. They want to meet. Marcus paid his bill, drove to the federal courthouse. Patricia had arranged an 8 a.m. video conference with the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. Marcus sat in her chambers facing a screen showing 3 attorneys in a Washington, D.C. conference room. Jennifer Walsh, lead attorney, spoke first. Judge Thompson, we've reviewed your preliminary evidence. Statistical analysis of 73 cases showing racial disparities in hearing duration and custody outcomes. If your numbers are accurate, this represents systematic violation of Equal Protection Clause. The numbers are accurate. I verified them against official court records and hearing transcripts. Marcus pulled up his database on the conference room screen. Average hearing time for Black fathers seeking custody, 2.3 minutes. For white fathers with identical petitions, 5.1 minutes. Custody granted to Black fathers, 11%. To white fathers, 48%. One of the other attorneys, a young Black woman named Kimberly Ross, leaned forward. Judge Thompson's statistical disparity alone isn't enough for federal prosecution. We need evidence of intent. Proof that the discrimination was deliberate, not just unconscious bias. I have that. Marcus uploaded Felix's threat recording, the one from yesterday's phone call. Court Administrator Felix Okonkwo threatened my daughter to force me to stop investigating. That's consciousness of guilt. He knows the discrimination is happening because he's facilitating it. Jennifer Walsh listened to the recording, her expression hardening. This is obstruction of justice. Witness intimidation. We can move on this immediately. Not yet. Marcus held up a hand. If you arrest Felix now, the rest of the conspiracy goes underground. Harrington retires quietly. Peachtree Family Services destroys their records, and we never find out how deep this goes. What are you proposing? Give me 6 more weeks. I'll document the financial connections between the court and social services. I'll get sworn testimony from affected fathers. I'll build a RICO case showing this is coordinated conspiracy, not isolated incidents. Marcus met Jennifer's eyes through the screen. Then we go public. Judicial Qualifications Commission hearing followed immediately by federal indictments. We take down the entire structure at once. The 3 DOJ attorneys conferred quietly. Finally, Jennifer nodded. 6 weeks, but Judge Thompson, if you're threatened again, if your daughter is endangered in any way, I pull out immediately and hand you everything I have. Agreed. After the video conference ended, Patricia turned to Marcus. You're playing a dangerous game. Felix has already shown he's willing to threaten a child. What happens when he realizes threats aren't working? Then he makes a mistake, and I'll be there to document it. Marcus stood, gathering his materials. Patricia, I need you to do something for me. Contact every father who lost custody in Harrington's court over the past 6 years. Tell them there's an investigation and they might have grounds to appeal their cases. That's over 70 families. Some of them have moved on, remarried, started new lives. You're asking them to relive trauma. I'm offering them justice, their choice whether to take it. Marcus spent the next 3 days in a systematic pattern. Mornings with Maya at Patricia's house, breakfast, helping with homework, pretending everything was normal. Afternoons interviewing fathers Rosa had connected him with. Evenings cleaning the courthouse, as Marcus Jackson, janitor, observing and recording. Nights compiling evidence, building case files, preparing for the confrontation he knew was coming. The father's stories followed a pattern that became sickeningly familiar. DeAndre Williams, who'd lost custody of his 6-year-old daughter after a 90-second hearing. Terrence Rodriguez labeled aggressive and intimidating in a social worker report despite being 5'8" and soft-spoken. Isaiah Grant, whose evidence of his ex-wife's substance abuse was never reviewed because Harrington didn't have time to look at photographs. Marcus recorded every interview, had each father sign a sworn statement, verified their accounts against court records. By the end of week 3, he had 12 complete case files, 12 families destroyed by a system designed to fail them. On Thursday morning, Maya's school called. The principal needed to see Marcus immediately. He dropped everything, drove to the elementary school with dread building in his chest. Felix's 48-hour deadline had passed 10 days ago. Whatever was coming, it was starting. Principal Warren's office smelled like copy paper and institutional anxiety. Maya sat in a chair outside the office, backpack on her lap, face expressionless in the way children learn when they were trying not to cry. What happened? Marcus knelt in front of his daughter, hands on her shoulders. There was an incident in the cafeteria. Principal Warren appeared in the doorway, a white woman in her 50s who'd run the school for 15 years. "Mr. Thompson, please come in, seat." Marcus looked at Maya. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "I'll be right back." He followed Principal Warren into the office, staying calm through sheer force of will. Warren settled behind her desk, pulled out an incident report. During lunch, Maya had a confrontation with another student, Tyler Henderson. The boy made comments about, she hesitated, about your employment status. Maya responded by pushing him. Marcus's jaw tightened. Henderson. White family, probably related to the Henderson who'd gotten favorable treatment in Harrington's courtroom. What exactly did Tyler say? According to witnesses, he called Maya's family poor because you're a janitor. Said she probably lived in a bad neighborhood. Warren's discomfort was visible. Maya told him her father was more important than his father. Then she pushed him when he laughed. Was Tyler disciplined for the initial comment? "Mr. Thompson, name-calling happens among children. We can't answer the question." Was the white child who initiated the confrontation with racial and economic slurs disciplined in any way? Warren's expression shifted defensive. "This isn't about race. Maya physically pushed another student. That's a violation of our zero-tolerance policy on violence." Marcus leaned back, studied the principal with the same analytical coldness he brought to evaluating witnesses. Warren was protecting the Henderson family because they had money-influence connections. Meanwhile, Maya was being punished for defending herself against mockery designed to humiliate. "My daughter defended her family's dignity after being bullied. Tyler Henderson faced no consequences for that bullying. And you're telling me this isn't about race?" Marcus stood. "I'd like to speak with Maya. Then we'll discuss appropriate resolution." He found Maya exactly where he'd left her, still clutching her backpack like armor. Marcus sat beside her, kept his voice gentle. "Tell me what happened, baby." "Tyler said you're just a janitor, that we're poor and probably live in a bad place." Maya's voice stayed steady, but her hands shook. "I told him you help people and that's more important than being rich." He laughed and said his dad is a lawyer and lawyers are more important than janitors. Marcus felt rage rising, pushed it down. "What did you do?" "I pushed him. I know I'm not supposed to, but Daddy, he was being mean." "He was being mean. You're right about that." Marcus pulled her close. "But baby, violence isn't how we solve problems. Even when someone is cruel, we don't respond with physical force." "I'm sorry." "I know you are." Marcus kissed the top of her head. "But Maya, I need you to understand something. Sometimes people will judge us based on what they think they see. They'll look at my job or our neighborhood or the color of our skin, and they'll make assumptions. That's not fair." "No, it's not. But we don't fight unfairness by becoming unfair ourselves. We fight it by being better, by proving them wrong through our actions." Marcus held her at arm's length, met her eyes. "Your mom used to say that dignity isn't something someone can take from you. It's something you choose to keep." Maya wiped her eyes. "Am I in trouble?" "With me, no. With the school." Marcus looked toward the principal's office. "We'll see." He returned to Warren's office, Maya following. The principal had been joined by Tyler Henderson's mother, exactly who Marcus expected. Mrs. Henderson, PTA president, wearing expensive athleisure and the expression of someone accustomed to getting her way. "Mr. Thompson." Mrs. Henderson's tone dripped condescension. I understand your daughter attacked my son. I understand your son bullied my daughter with economic and racial slurs. Tyler is 9 years old. Children say thoughtless things. And when those thoughtless things target race and class, they're taught. Tyler learned that behavior somewhere. Marcus kept his voice level, but the courtroom steel underneath was unmistakable. My daughter will apologize for pushing him. Will Tyler apologize for the bullying that provoked her? Mrs. Henderson's face flushed. I don't appreciate you implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. Your son mocked my daughter for having a father who works as a janitor. That's economic discrimination. He suggested we live in a bad neighborhood. Given that Maya and I are black and your son is white, that carries racial undertones, whether you acknowledge them or not. Principal Warren raised her hands. Let's all take a breath. Mr. Thompson, we can arrange a mediated discussion between the children. No. Marcus stood. Here's what's going to happen. Maya will receive appropriate consequences for the physical altercation. A detention, a written apology, whatever your policy requires. But Tyler will also receive consequences for initiating the confrontation through discriminatory bullying. If your school teaches children that a person's worth is measured by their parents' job title or income, then you're failing your educational mission. He took Maya's hand. And if you can't guarantee my daughter a learning environment free from this kind of harassment, we'll find a school that can. Warren and Mrs. Henderson exchanged glances. Finally, Warren nodded. We'll speak with Tyler about appropriate behavior. Both children will receive equal consequences. Thank you. Marcus led Maya toward the door, then paused. One more thing. The Henderson family, your husband is an attorney, correct? Mrs. Henderson blinked, surprised. Yes, family law. Why? Just curious. Marcus smiled without warmth. Maya, let's go. In the car, Maya was quiet until they pulled out of the school parking lot. Then, Daddy, are you really just a janitor? Marcus chose his words carefully. Right now, that's my job. But it's not all I am. Just like you're not just a third grader. You're also an artist, a reader, a scientist, a daughter. I'm incredibly proud of. But you were something else before, weren't you? Something important? Every job is important if it needs doing. Marcus glanced at her in the rearview mirror. But yes, I had a different career before. One I'll go back to when this is finished. When what's finished? Something I'm working on. Something that matters. Marcus pulled into Patricia's driveway where Maya had been staying. Baby, do you remember Uncle Jerome? He gave me the purple bunny. That's right. Uncle Jerome lost something important because people didn't treat him fairly. I'm trying to make sure that doesn't happen to other families. Marcus turned to face her. It might take a few more weeks. Can you be patient? Maya nodded. Are you being safe? I'm being careful, and you're being protected. That's why you're staying with Grandma Pat. I like staying here. She lets me eat ice cream for breakfast sometimes. Marcus laughed despite everything. Don't tell her I know that. That evening, Marcus returned to the courthouse for his janitor shift. The building was mostly empty by 6 p.m., just a few attorneys working late and court staff finishing paperwork. He cleaned systematically, moving through courtrooms, collecting trash, wiping down surfaces. At 7:15, he entered Judge Harrington's chambers to empty her trash. The office was dark door unlocked. She always left it open for custodial staff. Marcus worked quickly, professionally, the role so ingrained now that he almost forgot he was performing. Then he saw the files on her desk, case folders stacked and ready for tomorrow's docket. Marcus shouldn't look, shouldn't touch, should empty the trash and leave like any other janitor would. But he'd spent 3 weeks building this investigation, 3 weeks documenting systematic discrimination, 3 weeks watching families destroyed while judges like Harrington collected their salaries and went home to comfortable lives. He photographed the top file, Williams versus Williams, Black father custody petition scheduled for 9 a.m. tomorrow. The social worker report was paper-clipped to the front. Father demonstrates aggressive communication style and inadequate housing arrangements. Marcus knew Williams, had interviewed him 2 days ago. The man was a postal worker, soft-spoken, rented a 2-bedroom apartment in a decent neighborhood. Nothing about him was aggressive. Nothing about his housing was inadequate. But Peachtree Family Services had written a report designed to justify denying custody. And Harrington would rubber stamp it tomorrow morning, just like she'd rubber stamped 73 other cases. Marcus heard voices in the hallway. He shoved the phone in his pocket, grabbed the trash can, moved toward the door. Too late. Judge Harrington entered her chambers, followed by Felix Okonkwo. Both stopped when they saw Marcus. "What are you doing in here?" Harrington's voice went sharp. Marcus held up the trash can, kept his accent neutral and deferential. "Just cleaning, ma'am. Emptying the trash like usual." "At 7:30, you don't usually clean my office until after 8. Running behind tonight. I can come back if—" "No finish." Harrington waved him toward her desk's trash can. "But be quick. Mr. Okonkwo and I need to discuss something private." Marcus emptied the small wastebasket, hyper-aware of the files on her desk, the phone in his pocket containing photographs of those files. Felix watched him with the intensity of someone who knew exactly what they were looking for. "You're Marcus Jackson, correct?" Felix's voice stayed casual, conversational. "The new janitor." "Yes, sir." "How are you finding the work different from your previous positions?" Marcus felt the trap closing. Felix was probing, looking for slips in the cover story. "It's work, sir. Pays the bills. And you have a daughter, I understand, 8 years old." The mention of Maya made Marcus's hands tighten on the trash can. "Yes, sir. Family is so important." Felix smiled without warmth. "We'd all do anything to protect our children, wouldn't we?" The threat was subtle but clear. Marcus met Felix's eyes, let him see that the message was received. Then he nodded respectfully and left the office, heart hammering. In the hallway, he forced himself to walk normally, push the janitor cart at regular speed, show no indication that anything was wrong. But his mind raced through implications. Felix was escalating. The comment about protecting children wasn't coincidence. It was a reminder that they could hurt Maya if Marcus didn't back down. He finished his shift, changed clothes in the basement locker room, drove to a secure location. Patricia had arranged an apartment in Decatur paid for by federal discretionary funds swept weekly for surveillance devices. Inside, Marcus uploaded the photographs from Harrington's office to encrypted cloud storage. The Williams case file showed exactly what he expected: biased social worker report, a predetermined outcome, another father about to lose custody for no legitimate reason. His phone rang. Rosa Martinez. "Marcus, we need to meet tonight. Something happened." They met at a Kroger parking lot, sitting in Rosa's car, while rain drummed against the windshield. "I was called to HR this afternoon. They're suspending me pending investigation into misuse of confidential information." Rosa's voice shook with controlled fury. "Someone reported that I'd accessed case files without authorization and shared them with outside parties." "Felix. Obviously. But here's the thing, they don't know what I shared or with whom. They're fishing." Rosa pulled out her phone, showed Marcus an email. "Look at this, from my union representative. She says the county is required to specify which files were allegedly misused. They can't just make vague accusations." Marcus read the email. "Your union rep is right. If they want to fire you, they need documentation of specific violations, which means they'll have to disclose their evidence, which means discovery, which means I can subpoena their communications about why they're really going after me." Rosa's smile was fierce. "They made a mistake, Marcus. They tried to intimidate me through process, but they didn't expect me to know the process better than they do." "When's the hearing?" 2 weeks. Union arbitration. Public record." Rosa met his eyes. "I'm going to make them prove their case. And when they can't, when it becomes obvious this is retaliation for helping you, it'll be additional evidence of the conspiracy." Marcus felt something shift. Felix and Harrington thought they were silencing Rosa. Instead, they were creating another witness, another victim, more documentation of obstruction. "Rosa, if you fight this, if you go public, they'll destroy your career." "My career is already destroyed. They made sure of that when they suspended me." Rosa's voice steadied. "But my mother documented 3 decades of injustice and couldn't do anything with it. She died 2 years ago knowing the system she served had failed hundreds of families. I'm not dying with that regret." After Rosa left, Marcus sat alone in the parking lot, rain turning to mist. His phone buzzed with messages: Patricia confirming Maya was safe, Jennifer Walsh from DOJ requesting an update, his mother asking when he'd be home. But the message that stopped him was from an unknown number. "Your nephew Jaden wants to see you. Tomorrow, 3 p.m., Piedmont Park. Come alone." Jaden, Jerome's son, the 11-year-old boy who'd lost his father to a corrupt system. Marcus hadn't seen him in 3 months, not since Jerome's ex-wife had restricted Marcus's visitation rights. She'd claimed Marcus was emotionally unstable after Jerome's death, that seeing him upset Jaden. The timing of this message wasn't coincidence. Someone was using Jaden to get to Marcus. He showed up anyway. Piedmont Park at 3 p.m. was crowded with after-school families, dogs running in the open fields, joggers circling the paths. Marcus spotted Jaden on a bench near the lake wearing Jerome's old Braves cap. The boy looked older than Marcus remembered, taller, his face losing its childhood roundness. Marcus sat beside him. "Hey, Jay, how are you?" Jaden didn't look at him. "Mom said I shouldn't talk to you. Said you're causing trouble." "Your mom's right. I am causing trouble. For people who hurt your dad. You can't help him. He's dead." The bluntness of 11-year-old grief hit Marcus in the chest. "I can't bring him back, but I can try to make sure what happened to him doesn't happen to other families." Jaden finally turned and Marcus saw his brother's eyes looking back at him. "Will it make them give me back to my dad?" "Your dad's gone, Jay. Nothing can change that." "Then what's the point?" Jaden's voice cracked. "What's the point of causing trouble if it doesn't fix anything?" Marcus chose his words carefully. "Your dad loved you more than anything in the world. Losing you broke his heart. If I can help other fathers keep their kids, if I can change the system that took you away from him, that's how I honor his memory. Mom said the judge was right, that Dad wasn't capable of taking care of me. The judge was wrong. Your dad was plenty capable. The judge just didn't care enough to find out." Jaden wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "Is that why you're pretending to be a janitor, to prove the judges are wrong?" Marcus's blood went cold. "Who told you that?" "Mom's boyfriend. He works at the courthouse. He said you're some kind of undercover investigator trying to make trouble for Judge Harrington." Jaden's expression was unreadable. "Is it true?" Marcus calculated quickly. Denying it would be lying to his nephew. Confirming it would give Jerome's ex-wife ammunition. But Jaden deserved honesty. "It's true. I'm investigating Judge Harrington because of what she did to your dad." "Will she go to jail?" "I don't know yet, but she'll face consequences." Jaden nodded slowly. Then, "Can I help? You're 11. The best help you can give me is staying safe and letting the adults handle this." "I'm not a little kid. I remember the hearing. I remember Mom's lawyer saying Dad was dangerous and unstable. I wanted to tell the judge she was lying, but nobody asked me." Jaden's voice strengthened. "If you need someone to testify that Dad was good, that he took care of me, that the judge was wrong, I'll do it." Marcus pulled his nephew into a hug, feeling the boy's thin shoulders shake. "You're brave, just like your dad. But Jay, I need you to be careful. The people I'm investigating, they're dangerous. They already threatened my daughter. I don't want them threatening you. I'm not scared of them. You should be. But I'll tell you what, when this is over, when it's safe, I'll make sure you get to tell your story. Deal." "Deal." After Jaden left, Marcus sat on the bench watching the sun sink toward the western tree line. His phone buzzed, another unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. The voice was female, older, hesitant. "Is this Marcus Thompson, the judge?" "Who's asking?" "My name is Barbara Chen. I'm director of Peachtree Family Services." A pause. "I need to talk to you about Felix Okonkwo and what's been happening in family court." Marcus's instincts screamed trap. Barbara Chen ran the social services agency that had been filing biased reports for decades. She was part of the conspiracy. Why would she be calling him? "Why would I talk to you?" "Because Felix threatened me yesterday. Told me if I didn't keep filing the reports he wanted, he'd make sure I lost my contract with the county. He's been threatening me for 6 years. Her voice dropped. "Mr. Thompson, Judge Thompson, I didn't start out corrupt. I got trapped in this system and now I want out." Marcus's pulse quickened, a conspirator turning on the conspiracy. "If you want to talk, we do it on my terms. Recorded with counsel, present, full immunity agreement signed before you say one word." "I understand. When?" "I'll call you back in 24 hours. Don't contact Felix. Don't change your routine. Act like nothing's wrong." After hanging up, Marcus immediately called Jennifer Walsh at DOJ. "I think we have a witness willing to flip. Barbara Chen, director of Peachtree Family Services." Jennifer's response was immediate. "Don't meet with her without DOJ present. If she's willing to cooperate, we can offer immunity in exchange for testimony. But Judge Thompson, this could be a setup. Felix might be using her to trap you. I know. That's why we need to control the meeting. Secure location recording devices, immunity agreement that requires full truthfulness. I'll have paperwork ready by tomorrow. Where are you with evidence gathering? Marcus pulled up his files. 12 father testimonies, 30 years of case documentation from Rosa Martinez, statistical analysis showing systematic discrimination, recordings of Felix making threats, financial records showing $450,000 annually from county to Peachtree Family Services. That's enough to move forward, but more would be better. Can you get internal communications emails between Felix and Harrington memos showing coordination? I'm working on it. Harrington's office computer might have what we need, but accessing it would require a legal search without warrant. Don't do it. We build this case legally with admissible evidence only. Jennifer's voice firmed. 6 more weeks. Document everything you can through legal means. Then we bring it to the Judicial Qualifications Commission and file federal charges simultaneously. Marcus spent the next 2 weeks in intensive investigation. He interviewed 15 more fathers, collected their case files, verified their stories against official records. He met with Barbara Chen in a federal building with DOJ attorneys present, recording her confession about the biased reports Peachtree had been filing for 6 years. Barbara's testimony was damning. She described Felix explicitly, telling her which fathers should receive negative evaluations, which families should be separated, which outcomes the court expected. She produced emails showing coordination between her agency and the court administration. She admitted to participating in what she now recognized as systematic civil rights violations. In exchange for her cooperation, DOJ offered immunity from prosecution. Barbara signed the agreement and provided everything she had, 6 years of internal agency communications templates for biased reports, financial records, showing the county contract increased each year she cooperated with Felix's directives. Meanwhile, Rosa's union arbitration hearing became a public spectacle. The county tried to prove she'd misused confidential information, but couldn't specify which files were allegedly accessed inappropriately. Rosa's attorney, one of the best labor lawyers in Atlanta, shredded their case, pointing out that court clerks were required to access case files as part of their job duties. The arbitrator ruled in Rosa's favor. She was reinstated with full back pay and a formal apology. But more importantly, the hearing produced documentation of the county's retaliatory conduct evidence that would support the federal conspiracy case. 4 weeks into the investigation, Marcus received a package at his secure apartment. No return address, postmarked from Atlanta. Inside a flash drive and a handwritten note. Judge Thompson, I am a court reporter who has worked in Harrington's courtroom for 8 years. I have transcripts of every hearing, including ones that were ordered sealed. I also have recordings. Everything is on this drive. I'm retiring next month and moving to Florida. They can't threaten me anymore. Make them pay. Anonymous. Marcus plugged in the drive. It contained audio recordings of over 200 hearings meticulously organized by date and case number. The recordings captured everything: Harrington's tone changing based on litigant race, her rushed decisions in cases involving black fathers, her careful consideration in cases involving white fathers. He listened to Jerome's hearing. 2 minutes, 17 seconds of his brother pleading for custody while Harrington interrupted, dismissed, denied. Marcus heard his brother's voice crack when the judge ruled against him, heard the pain that would eventually kill him. He listened to the recording 3 times, memorizing every word, every inflection. Then he sent a copy to DOJ with a note. This is why it matters. 5 weeks in, Felix made his final mistake. Marcus was cleaning the courthouse basement at 11 p.m. when he heard voices in the mechanical room, a space that was supposed to be empty after hours. He moved closer, phone recording in his pocket. Felix Okonkwo and someone else. Marcus didn't recognize the second voice until he heard them mention the Judicial Qualifications Commission. Reviewed the complaint against Harrington. They're scheduling a hearing. Felix swore. When 3 weeks, they want her to respond to allegations of systematic bias in custody determinations. Can we delay it? Not without making it worse. Felix, this is over. Someone's been documenting everything, and now it's going to the commission. Then we destroy the documentation. Harrington's case files archived records, anything that shows patterns. That's obstruction of justice. It's survival. Felix's voice carried desperation Marcus hadn't heard before. I've got 14 months until retirement. Full pension. Benefits. I'm not losing that because Harrington couldn't control her biases. So you'll commit federal crimes to protect your pension. I'll do whatever it takes. Marcus kept recording, barely breathing. Felix was planning to destroy evidence. That was a separate federal charge: obstruction, tampering, conspiracy to impede investigation. The conversation continued for 10 more minutes, Felix outlining which files to shred, which computer records to delete, which witnesses to pressure into silence. Marcus captured everything. When Felix finally left, Marcus waited 20 minutes before emerging from his hiding spot. He immediately uploaded the recording to DOJ's secure server, adding notes about time, location, participants. Jennifer Walsh called within an hour. Judge Thompson, this is enough. Felix just confessed to obstruction on tape. We can arrest him tomorrow. Not yet. If you arrest Felix, Harrington knows the investigation is active. She lawyers up, stops cooperating, warns everyone else in the conspiracy. Marcus checked his notes. The commission hearing is in 3 weeks. I reveal my identity there, present all evidence publicly, then you move in with federal charges. We take down the entire structure simultaneously. 3 weeks is a long time. Felix might successfully destroy evidence in that time. Let him try. Every file he destroys is another count of obstruction. Every witness he threatens is more evidence of conspiracy. Marcus's voice carried certainty. We're too close to rush this. 3 more weeks and we finish what we started. Jennifer was quiet for a long moment. Then 3 weeks, but Judge Thompson, if anything happens to your daughter, if anything happens to Maya, I'll destroy Felix myself, legally and completely. The final 2 weeks passed in mounting tension. Marcus continued his janitor routine, documenting everything he could. Rosa, reinstated at the courthouse, fed him information about which files Felix was accessing, which cases he was tampering with. Barbara Chen, wearing a wire for DOJ, recorded her final conversations with Felix before announcing her resignation. The evidence file grew to 437 pages. 12 father testimonies, 30 years of case documentation, statistical analysis showing systematic discrimination, recordings of Felix making threats and planning obstruction, Barbara Chen's confession and email evidence, the anonymous court reporter's hearing recordings, financial records showing kickback schemes, everything needed to prove federal conspiracy. 1 week before the commission hearing, Maya asked the question Marcus had been dreading. Daddy, when do I get to go home? They were eating dinner at Patricia's house, Maya working through her 4th week of what she still thought was an extended sleepover. But Marcus could see the strain in showing she missed her room, her toys, her normal routine. Soon, baby, very soon. How soon? Marcus set down his fork. 1 more week, then everything goes back to normal. Will you stop being a janitor? Yes, I'll go back to being a judge. Maya considered this. Will the people who were mean to Uncle Jerome get in trouble? Yes, they'll face consequences for what they did. Good. Maya's voice carried satisfaction beyond her years. Uncle Jerome was nice. They shouldn't have been mean to him. No, they shouldn't have. Marcus pulled her close. Maya, I need to tell you something. Next week is going to be busy. There's going to be news coverage, probably reporters asking questions. Grandma Pat is going to make sure you're safe and protected from all that. Are you going to be safe? Yes, baby. I promise. Maya hugged him tight. Bigger than the sky. Marcus's throat closed. Bigger than the sky. The night before the commission hearing, Marcus sat in his apartment reviewing the evidence one final time. Everything was organized, indexed, ready to present. His federal judge robes hung on the closet door, cleaned and pressed. The janitor uniform was folded in a box, ready to be discarded. His phone buzzed. Text from Felix Okonkwo. Last chance, Thompson. Drop this and walk away. Continue and you lose everything. Marcus typed back. See you tomorrow morning. Felix's response came immediately. You're making the biggest mistake of your life. Marcus stared at the message, then deleted it. Felix was wrong. The biggest mistake would have been doing nothing. Would have been letting Jerome's death mean nothing. Would have been allowing this corrupt system to continue destroying families. Tomorrow, Marcus would walk into that hearing room wearing janitor clothes. He'd stand before the commission and reveal exactly who he was. He'd present 437 pages of evidence documenting 30 years of systematic discrimination, and then he'd watch the entire conspiracy burn. His phone rang. Judge Patricia Williams. Marcus, are you ready? I've been ready for 3 years, since the day Jerome lost his son, since the moment I realized the system failed him. Tomorrow changes everything. Your life, your career, hundreds of families, everything shifts. I know. Patricia's voice softened. Keisha would be proud. She always said you had a righteous anger that needed direction. Looks like you found it. Marcus looked at the photo on his desk, Keisha, Jerome, and baby Maya at a family barbecue 6 years ago, all of them laughing, unaware that tragedy waited in their future. I found it. Now I'm using it. Get some sleep. Tomorrow you change the world. But Marcus didn't sleep. He stayed awake, reviewing files, memorizing facts, preparing for every possible question the commission might ask. At 4 a.m., he finally closed his laptop and stood at the window watching Atlanta wake up. Somewhere in this city, 73 fathers were sleeping or not sleeping, wondering if their children remembered them. Somewhere, Harrington was preparing her defense, probably confident she'd survive this challenge to her authority. Somewhere, Felix was making final plans to obstruct, threaten, destroy. And tomorrow morning, Marcus Allen Thompson, United States Circuit Judge for the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, would walk into that hearing room and unleash hell. His phone buzzed one last time. Text from Rosa Martinez. Today we fight for everyone they hurt. Today we win. Marcus smiled, picked up his phone, and typed one final message to Jennifer Walsh at UM. I'm ready. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Let's bring them down. Jennifer's response, we'll be watching. Federal marshals on standby. The moment you finish your testimony, we move on Felix and Harrington simultaneously. Good luck, Judge Thompson. Marcus set the phone down, moved to his closet, and pulled out the janitor uniform one final time. Tomorrow morning, he'd wear these clothes into that hearing room. He'd let them see him as a janitor, let them underestimate him one last time. Then he'd show them exactly who they'd been threatening. The sun broke over Atlanta's skyline, painting the city in golden shadow. Marcus dressed in his thrift store jacket and worn work pants. He picked up his bag containing the federal judge robes and 437 pages of evidence. Time to finish this. The Georgia Judicial Qualifications Commission hearing room occupied the third floor of the State Bar Building in downtown Atlanta. Marcus arrived at 8:15, 45 minutes before the scheduled start. The building's lobby was already filling with people, reporters, attorneys, court personnel who'd heard rumors something significant was happening. Marcus pushed through the crowd, wearing his janitor uniform, carrying a worn duffel bag that contained his federal judge robes and 237 pages of evidence. People looked through him the way they always looked through custodial workers registered his presence without really seeing him. Perfect. The hearing room itself smelled like furniture polish and accumulated tension. 7 commissioners sat behind an elevated bench, judges, attorneys, public members, appointed to oversee judicial conduct. Commission Chair Bernard Hayes, 73 and formidable, studied the docket with the expression of someone who'd seen every variety of judicial misconduct. Judge Linda Harrington sat at the respondent's table with her attorney, a man named Douglas Webb, who billed $800 an hour and looked like he'd never lost a case. Harrington wore a conservative navy suit, pearls the costume of respectability. She glanced at Marcus when he entered, saw the janitor clothes, dismissed him as irrelevant. Marcus took a seat in the gallery's back row. The room continued filling, more attorneys, court staff, reporters with notepads. He spotted Rosa Martinez near the front, her presence a quiet statement of solidarity. In the hallway outside, federal marshals waited in plain clothes, ready to move on Jennifer Walsh's signal. At exactly 9 a.m., Chair Hayes called the hearing to order. This is a formal proceeding of the Georgia Judicial Qualifications Commission regarding complaint number JQC 2024-0847, filed against Judge Linda Harrington of the Fulton County Family Court. The complainant is... Hayes paused, checking his notes. Marcus Thompson. Is Mr. Thompson present? Marcus stood. Every head in the room turned to look at the janitor in the back row. I'm here, Your Honor. Hayes frowned. Mr. Thompson, this is a formal hearing. I see you're not dressed appropriately. I'm dressed exactly as I've been dressed for the past 3 months, Your Honor. As a janitor at Fulton County Family Court. Marcus moved down the aisle, duffel bag in hand. But that's not my actual occupation. He reached the front of the room, set the bag on the complainant's table, and pulled out black fabric that unfurled as he lifted it. Federal appellate judge robes. He draped them carefully over the chair beside him. The room went silent. My name is Marcus Allen Thompson. For the past 3 months, I've worked as a janitor at Fulton County Family Court under the name Marcus Jackson. But I'm actually a United States Circuit Judge for the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. His voice carried the measured authority of 8 years on the federal bench. I've served in that capacity since 2016. Before that, I practiced civil rights law for 12 years. Harrington's face drained of color. Her attorney's mouth closed, opened again without sound. Reporters started scribbling frantically. Hayes removed his glasses, studying Marcus with new intensity. You went undercover in a state family court. Yes, Your Honor. With authorization from Chief Judge Patricia Williams of the 11th Circuit, Marcus pulled documents from his bag. I can provide written authorization if the commission requires it. Why would a federal appellate judge conduct an undercover investigation of a state family court judge? Marcus pulled a photograph from his evidence file, set it on the table where the commissioners could see. 3 years ago, my younger brother Jerome Thompson appeared in Judge Harrington's court seeking custody of his 6-year-old son Jaden. The hearing lasted 2 minutes and 17 seconds. I know because I timed it from the gallery. The photograph showed Jerome and Jaden at the aquarium, both pressed against the Shark Tank glass, identical expressions of wonder on their faces. Father and son frozen in a moment before the system destroyed them. My brother was a good man, postal worker, stable housing, no criminal record, loving father. But the social worker report labeled him aggressive and unstable. Judge Harrington denied his petition without reviewing his evidence, without hearing his character witnesses, without giving him a meaningful opportunity to be heard. Marcus turned the page. A death certificate. Jerome Marcus Thompson, date of death March 15, 2023, age 38, cause acute myocardial infarction. 18 months ago, my brother died of a heart attack. He was 38 years old. The medical examiner's report cited chronic hypertension brought on by sustained emotional distress. Marcus's voice remained level, but every word carried weight. My brother died of a broken heart because this court system took his child from him. The silence in the room had texture, now heavy with the reality of what Marcus was describing. I went undercover to determine whether what happened to Jerome was isolated or systemic. Marcus closed the binder containing his brother's photograph and death certificate. It's systemic, and I have 237 pages of evidence to prove it. Hayes leaned forward. What kind of evidence are we talking about, Judge Thompson? Statistical analysis of 73 cases over 6 years showing racial disparities in hearing duration and custody outcomes. Individual sworn testimony from 12 fathers who experienced discrimination in Judge Harrington's courtroom. Financial records documenting kickback schemes between the court and social services agencies. Audio recordings of court proceedings. And 30 years of documentation proving this isn't new, it's institutional. Douglas Webb, Harrington's attorney, found his voice. Your Honor, this is entrapment. Evidence gathered under false pretenses. Judge Thompson deceived the court, violated ethical rules. Federal judges conducting authorized civil rights investigations aren't bound by state rules of evidence or criminal procedure. Marcus's interruption was gentle but absolute, and nothing I gathered involved deception that would invalidate the evidence under federal law. I observed public court proceedings, interviewed willing witnesses, and documented systematic violations of constitutional rights. He turned to face the commissioners directly. If this commission is concerned about ethical violations, I suggest you focus on the judge who spent 6 years systematically discriminating against Black fathers seeking custody of their children. Hayes raised a hand. Judge Thompson, you'll have opportunity to present your evidence. But first, I need to understand the scope of your allegations. Are you claiming Judge Harrington engaged in isolated instances of bias or something more extensive? Something far more extensive. Marcus pulled out his laptop, connected it to the hearing room's display screen. I'm claiming systematic, coordinated institutional discrimination involving Judge Harrington Court Administrator Felix Okonkwo and Peachtree Family Services. A 30-year conspiracy to deprive Black fathers of their constitutional right to due process and equal protection. He pulled up his first exhibit, a statistical chart showing hearing durations color-coded by race. This is based on official court records verified against hearing transcripts and audio recordings. Over 6 years, Judge Harrington presided over 73 cases involving Black fathers seeking custody or visitation. The chart filled the screen. Red bars for Black fathers, blue bars for white fathers. The disparity was visually stark. Average hearing time for Black fathers, 2 minutes and 18 seconds. Marcus let that number sit. Average hearing time for white fathers with identical petitions in similar circumstances, 5 minutes and 7 seconds. A commissioner in the middle of the bench, a Black woman named Judge Adrienne Foster, leaned forward. That's more than twice as long. 2.2 times to be precise. Statistically significant at p-value less than 0.001. Marcus advanced to the next slide. But hearing duration is just one metric. Outcomes are even more telling. The next chart showed custody decisions. Of the 73 Black fathers, 8 received primary custody. That's 11%. Of 73 demographically similar white fathers, same income levels, employment status, housing situations, 35 received primary custody, 48%. That's a fourfold disparity, Judge Foster said. Yes, and it persists across every variable I controlled for. Marcus clicked through additional charts: employment status, income level, criminal history, housing quality. The only consistent factor explaining the disparity is race. Webb stood. Your Honor, statistical analysis proves nothing without context. Every case is unique. Different facts, different circumstances. Which is why I documented individual cases. Marcus interrupted smoothly. Would the commission like to hear testimony from fathers who experienced this discrimination firsthand? Hayes nodded. Proceed. Marcus gestured toward the gallery. DeAndre Williams stood, a man in his 30s, wearing his Postal Service uniform, looking nervous but determined. He approached the witness stand. Please state your name and relationship to this proceeding. DeAndre Williams, I lost custody of my daughter Amara in Judge Harrington's court 3 years ago. Describe what happened at your hearing. DeAndre's voice shook slightly, but he pushed forward. I filed for joint custody after my divorce. I had stable employment with the post office, a 2-bedroom apartment, clean background check. I brought character witnesses. My supervisor, my pastor, Amara's teacher, who said I was involved and caring. How long was your hearing? 90 seconds, maybe less. DeAndre's jaw tightened. Judge Harrington looked at the social worker report, didn't look at me or my witnesses. She asked one question, do you have a job? I said, yes, I work for USPS. She said, petition denied, next case. What was in the social worker report? Said I was unemployed. I had pay stubs proving otherwise, but she wouldn't look at them. DeAndre pulled out documents. Here's my employment verification from that date. I'd been working full-time for 8 years. Marcus entered the employment verification as evidence, then pulled up audio from DeAndre's hearing, the recording provided by the anonymous court reporter. The commission listened to 97 seconds of DeAndre trying to present evidence, while Harrington cut him off repeatedly. Thank you, Mr. Williams. Marcus gestured him back to his seat, then called Terrence Rodriguez. Rodriguez, a slight man who looked younger than his 36 years, described being labeled aggressive and intimidating in his social worker report, despite being 5'8" and soft-spoken. I asked the social worker what I did that was aggressive. She couldn't give me an example, just said it was her professional observation. In the hearing, 2 minutes. Judge said the social worker was the expert, denied my petition, told me I could have supervised visitation if I paid for a supervisor. Rodriguez's voice hardened. That's $75 per visit. I make $22 an hour. After child support, rent, and bills, I can afford maybe 2 visits a month. My son is growing up barely knowing me. Marcus presented 6 more individual cases, each following the same pattern. Abbreviated hearings, social worker reports contradicted by evidence, Black fathers denied meaningful opportunity to be heard. The cumulative effect was devastating. Then he shifted to the financial evidence. The bias wasn't random. It was coordinated. Marcus pulled up emails between Felix Okonkwo and Barbara Chen, director of Peachtree Family Services. Court Administrator Okonkwo explicitly directed which fathers should receive negative evaluations. The emails appeared on screen. Felix to Barbara, The Williams case tomorrow needs a recommendation against custody. Make sure the report reflects concerns about stability. Barbara's response, understood. Report will reflect county preferences. County preferences. Marcus let the phrase hang. That's code for predetermined outcomes. Barbara Chen has provided sworn testimony describing 6 years of being directed by Felix Okonkwo to file biased reports in exchange for contract renewals. He displayed the financial records. Peachtree Family Services receives $450,000 annually from Fulton County. That contract is contingent on, quote, satisfactory cooperation with family court objectives. When Barbara Chen tried to file accurate reports that didn't match Felix's directives, she was threatened with contract termination. Webb was on his feet. Your Honor, this is hearsay, unsubstantiated accusations from a disgruntled contractor. It's sworn testimony from a cooperating witness who's provided documentary evidence. Marcus pulled up Barbara Chen's immunity agreement with the Department of Justice. Ms. Chen has been granted federal immunity in exchange for truthful testimony about her participation in this conspiracy. Hayes studied the immunity agreement. The DOJ is involved in this investigation. Yes, Your Honor. The Department of Justice Civil Rights Division has been monitoring this proceeding. As soon as I finish presenting evidence here, they'll be filing federal civil rights charges. Marcus met Harrington's eyes. This isn't just a state judicial misconduct case. It's a federal conspiracy to violate constitutional rights. He advanced to the next section of evidence, the 30-year documentation Rosa's mother had compiled. This pattern didn't start with Judge Harrington. She inherited a corrupt system and perpetuated it. The screen showed case summaries from 1994, 2001, 2008, 2015. Different judges, same outcomes. Black fathers systematically denied custody at abbreviated hearings, biased social worker reports. Rosa Martinez's mother worked as court clerk for 32 years. She documented this pattern, but didn't know what to do with the information. When she died 2 years ago, she passed these files to her daughter. Marcus gestured toward Rosa in the gallery. Ms. Martinez has been compiling additional documentation for the past 6 years, hoping someone would care enough to investigate. He pulled up the final piece of evidence, the recording of Felix threatening him. 2 weeks ago, Court Administrator Okonkwo called me. He'd discovered I was conducting an investigation. Listen to what he said. The recording played. Felix's voice filled the hearing room. I know you have a daughter. Instability affects custody determinations. Wouldn't want Maya to end up in a situation like the families you've been talking to. The threat was clear. Several commissioners looked shocked. Hayes's expression darkened. Felix Okonkwo threatened your child to force you to stop investigating. Yes, he also threatened Rosa Martinez with termination, Barbara Chen with loss of her contract, and attempted to obstruct this investigation by planning to destroy court records. Marcus played the recording of Felix in the courthouse basement, discussing which files to shred and which witnesses to pressure into silence. Webb looked pale. Harrington sat frozen, realizing her attorney had no defense against this avalanche of evidence. Marcus closed his laptop, faced the commissioners directly. For 30 years, this family court system has systematically discriminated against Black fathers. Hundreds of families have been destroyed. Children have grown up without their fathers. Men like my brother have died from the stress of losing their children to a corrupt system. His voice stayed level-controlled, but the passion underneath was unmistakable. Judge Harrington is guilty of systematic violations of due process and equal protection. Felix Okonkwo is guilty of conspiracy obstruction and witness intimidation. This entire system is guilty of institutional racism that has operated unchecked for 3 decades. He pulled his federal judge robes from the chair, held them. I took an oath to uphold the Constitution, to protect civil rights, to ensure equal justice under law. When I discovered my brother was denied those rights, when I realized hundreds of other fathers faced the same discrimination, I couldn't look away. Marcus put on the robes, the fabric settling over his shoulders with familiar weight. I'm asking this commission to immediately suspend Judge Harrington from the bench pending full investigation. I'm asking you to refer this matter to the Department of Justice for criminal prosecution. And I'm asking you to order the reopening of every custody case decided in her courtroom over the past 6 years. He set the 237 pages of evidence on the table. Everything I've described is documented in this file. Case summaries, witness statements, statistical analysis, audio recordings, financial records, email communications. It's all there. Hayes looked at the other commissioners. Silent communication passed between them. Finally, he turned back to Marcus. Judge Thompson, this commission needs to review the evidence before making determinations. But I'll say this, in 30 years of overseeing judicial conduct, I've never seen such comprehensive documentation of systematic misconduct. He looked at Harrington. Judge Harrington, do you wish to respond to these allegations? Harrington conferred with her attorney in frantic whispers. Webb stood, straightened his tie. Your Honor, we request time to review Judge Thompson's evidence and prepare a response. These allegations are complex and the evidence speaks for itself. Judge Foster, the black woman on the commission, interrupted. Chair Hayes, I've listened to the audio recordings. I've seen the statistics. I've heard the testimony. Her voice carried barely contained fury. This isn't complex. This is systematic discrimination documented over years affecting hundreds of families. She looked at Harrington. Judge, did you or did you not give black fathers significantly shorter hearings than white fathers in custody cases? Harrington opened her mouth, closed it. Her attorney put a hand on her arm. Judge Harrington, you're required to respond to questions from this commission. Harrington's voice came out thin, shaking. Every case is different. I've always tried to follow the law. Answer the question. Judge Foster's tone allowed no evasion. Did you give black fathers shorter hearings? Some cases required less time than others. 2 minutes versus 5 minutes. 11% custody granted versus 48%. Those aren't random variations. That's a pattern. Judge Foster leaned forward. Did you discriminate against black fathers in your courtroom? The question hung in the air. Harrington looked at her attorney, at the commissioners, at the reporters taking notes. Finally, she started crying. I thought I was protecting the children. Her voice broke. Single fathers especially, I thought mothers were better suited for primary custody. I didn't realize. You didn't realize you were violating constitutional rights. Marcus's voice cut through her tears. You're a judge. You took an oath. You knew exactly what you were doing. Harrington's face crumpled. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt anyone. My brother is dead. Marcus's voice stayed controlled, but the pain underneath was raw. He died because you took 97 seconds to destroy his relationship with his son. You didn't mean to hurt anyone. Hayes raised his hand. Judge Thompson, I understand your anger, but this commission will handle questioning. Marcus nodded, stepped back. He'd said what needed saying. The rest was process. Hayes conferred with the other commissioners for several minutes. Then he returned to his microphone. Judge Harrington, based on the evidence presented and your own admissions, this commission has no choice but to immediately suspend you from the bench without pay pending full investigation into these allegations. Gasps from the gallery. Harrington slumped in her chair. Furthermore, we're referring this matter to the Georgia Attorney General for criminal investigation and to the U.S. Department of Justice for federal civil rights prosecution. Hayes looked at Marcus. Judge Thompson, thank you for bringing this to our attention. Your evidence will be turned over to appropriate authorities. He banged the gavel. This hearing is adjourned. The room erupted. Reporters rushed toward Marcus, shouting questions. Federal marshals moved in surrounding Felix Okonkwo, who'd been sitting in the gallery. Jennifer Walsh appeared from the back of the room, flashing DOJ credentials. Felix Okonkwo, you're under arrest for conspiracy to violate civil rights, obstruction of justice, and witness intimidation. The marshals handcuffed him while reading Miranda rights. Felix looked at Marcus as he was being led out. You destroyed my career, my family, everything I built. Marcus met his eyes without flinching. You destroyed hundreds of families first. This is called accountability. Outside on the courthouse steps, reporters surrounded Marcus. He stood in his federal judge robes, calm and composed despite the chaos. Judge Thompson, why did you go undercover instead of filing a formal complaint? Because formal complaints had been filed before. They were buried by the same institutional corruption I was investigating. I needed evidence that couldn't be ignored. What happens to the families affected by Judge Harrington's discrimination? The Department of Justice is filing a comprehensive civil rights lawsuit. All 73 cases I documented will be reopened. Fathers will get new hearings before unbiased judges, and many more cases from the past 30 years will likely be reviewed as well. Some people are calling you a hero. I'm not a hero, Marcus cut off the reporter. I'm a brother who couldn't save his sibling, but maybe I can help other families avoid the same tragedy. That's all I'm trying to do. What about your nephew Jaden? Will you get custody? Marcus paused. He hadn't announced that publicly yet. I've filed for guardianship. Given the circumstances of his father's case, I'm hopeful the court will grant my petition. Judge Thompson, final question, was it worth it? The risk, the undercover work, the threats to your family? Marcus looked directly at the camera. My brother died at 38 because this system broke his heart. 73 other fathers lost their children to systematic discrimination. 800 families were affected over 30 years. Was exposing that worth 3 months as a janitor? He smiled slightly. Absolutely. Inside the courthouse, Harrington sat alone in an empty conference room. Her attorney had left to make calls. Her career was over. Pension forfeited, criminal charges pending. The life she'd built over 30 years on the bench destroyed in one morning. Her phone buzzed. An email from the State Bar, notice of ethics investigation. Another from the Georgia Attorney General. Please contact our office regarding potential criminal charges. A third from her insurance company. Your liability coverage may not extend to federal civil rights violations. She read each one, feeling her future collapse with each sentence. A knock on the door. Barbara Chen entered hesitantly. Linda, I need to tell you something. You flipped. Harrington's voice was flat. You cooperated with Thompson and the DOJ. I had to. Felix threatened me, said he'd destroy my business if I didn't keep filing the reports he wanted. Barbara sat down. I'm sorry, I know that doesn't mean anything now, but I am sorry. Sorry doesn't give me back my career. No, but maybe it helps some of those families. Barbara met her eyes. We did terrible things, Linda, for years. We told ourselves it was for the children or efficiency or whatever rationalization let us sleep at night. But we destroyed families. Harrington wanted to argue to defend herself, to explain that she'd thought she was doing right. But the words wouldn't come, because deep down she'd known. Maybe not consciously, not explicitly, but she'd known that Black fathers got shorter hearings, harsher judgments, less consideration. She'd known, and she'd done it anyway. 2 weeks later, the Department of Justice held a press conference announcing their findings. Jennifer Walsh stood at a podium in Washington, D.C., flanked by the Attorney General and Civil Rights Division leadership. Today, the Department of Justice is filing a comprehensive civil rights lawsuit against Fulton County, Georgia, the Fulton County Family Court, and several individuals involved in a 30-year conspiracy to systematically discriminate against African American fathers in custody proceedings. The cameras flashed. Reporters took notes. Our investigation, initiated by evidence gathered by U.S. Circuit Judge Marcus Thompson, has revealed shocking patterns of discrimination. Over 800 families were affected. Black fathers received hearings averaging 2.3 minutes compared to 5.1 minutes for similarly situated white fathers. Custody was granted to only 11% of Black fathers versus 48% of white fathers. Jennifer paused, letting the statistics sink in. This wasn't unconscious bias. This was systematic, coordinated discrimination involving multiple court officials and social service agencies. We're seeking a federal consent decree requiring independent oversight of the Fulton County Family Court for 7 years mandatory bias training for all judicial personnel and a compensation fund for affected families. The estimated damages total $3.2 million. But the real cost, the hundreds of children who grew up without their fathers, the fathers who suffered emotional and financial devastation, that cost is incalculable. A reporter shouted a question. What about Judge Harrington and Felix Okonkwo? Judge Harrington has been permanently removed from the bench by the Georgia Judicial Qualifications Commission. Her pension has been forfeited. The Attorney General is considering criminal charges. Felix Okonkwo has been charged with conspiracy to violate civil rights, obstruction of justice, and witness intimidation. He faces up to 18 months in federal prison. And the families, what happens to them? All 73 cases documented by Judge Thompson are being reopened. Additional cases from the past 30 years are under review. Fathers will receive new hearings before federal magistrates appointed to ensure impartiality. Jennifer's expression softened. These families deserve justice. Finally, they're going to get it. The reopened hearings began 6 weeks later. DeAndre Williams was first. He sat across from a federal magistrate judge, his daughter Amara beside him, now 9 years old, nervous, but holding her father's hand. The magistrate reviewed the evidence: employment verification, housing documentation, character witnesses, school records showing Amara's grades improved when spending time with her father. The hearing lasted 47 minutes. The magistrate asked thoughtful questions, reviewed every piece of evidence, spoke directly to Amara about her preferences and feelings. Then he ruled, based on the totality of circumstances and evidence presented, I'm granting Mr. Williams joint physical custody with a 50-50 parenting schedule. Both parents clearly love this child. Both are capable. There's no legitimate reason to deny equal access. DeAndre broke down crying. Amara hugged him, and for the first time in 3 years, a father could plan a life with his daughter beyond supervised 2-hour visits. Terrence Rodriguez's hearing resulted in full custody. His ex-wife had moved out of state and didn't contest the modification. Isaiah Grant was awarded primary custody after evidence showed his ex-wife's substance abuse issues had been documented but ignored in the original hearing. One by one, the 73 cases were resolved. Not all fathers got the outcomes they sought. Some had genuinely concerning issues that emerged under fair review. But they all got something they'd been denied before a real hearing, a fair evaluation due process. 4 months after the commission hearing, Marcus stood in a different courtroom for a different purpose. Family court, but not Harrington's, a visiting judge from Cobb County, carefully selected for impartiality. In the matter of guardianship petition for Jaden Thompson, age 11, the judge reviewed the file. Mr. Thompson, you're seeking to become Jaden's legal guardian. Yes, Your Honor. Jaden is my nephew. His father, my brother, Jerome, lost custody in a proceeding we now know was tainted by discrimination. Jerome died 18 months ago. I believe I can provide Jaden with a stable, loving home. The judge looked at Jaden sitting beside Marcus. Young man, do you want to live with your uncle? Jaden nodded. He's the only family I have left who knew my dad. Living with him, it's like keeping my dad alive. The judge's expression softened. And your mother? What's her position? Jerome's ex-wife sat across the courtroom with her attorney. She'd remarried, had a new baby, seemed relieved to transfer responsibility. I don't object, Your Honor. Marcus has always been good to Jaden. If they both want this, I won't stand in the way. The judge signed the order. Guardianship is granted. Mr. Thompson, you're now Jaden's legal guardian. Marcus pulled his nephew into a hug, feeling the boy's thin shoulders shake with relief. You're home, Jay. You're finally home. That evening, Marcus sat at his dining table with Maya, Jaden, and Rosa. Maya and Jaden had bonded quickly, cousins who understood loss in ways other children couldn't. Rosa had been coming to dinner 3 times a week, the relationship between her and Marcus deepening from allies to something more. Uncle Marcus got a letter today, Jaden announced, from the scholarship fund. They want to name it after my dad. Marcus smiled. Not just named after him, built in his honor. The Jerome Thompson Scholarship Fund for children of single fathers affected by custody discrimination. How much money is it? Maya asked, always practical. $1.2 million, enough to support 30 children per year for the next decade. Marcus looked at both kids. Your dad would be proud, Jay. And Maya, your mom would too. They both believed in fighting for what's right. Rosa reached across the table, took Marcus's hand. You did this. You fought the system and won. We did this. Marcus squeezed her hand. You, Barbara Chen, all the fathers who were brave enough to come forward, the anonymous court reporter who provided recordings. This was never about one person. It was about everyone who refused to accept injustice. Maya studied them, the subtle affection between her father and Rosa. Are you going to get married? Marcus nearly choked on his water. Maya. It's okay if you do. I like Rosa, and Jaden needs a mom. Maya's 8-year-old logic was as always absolute. Rosa laughed. Your daughter is very direct. She gets it from her mother. Marcus looked at his daughter, his nephew, the woman who'd become indispensable to his life. But she's not wrong. Though maybe we take things one step at a time. One step at a time, Rosa agreed. But her smile suggested she wasn't opposed to the eventual destination. 18 months after the commission hearing, the city of Atlanta hosted a dedication ceremony. The Jerome Thompson Memorial Courthouse, a new family court building designed to replace the corrupt system that had failed so many families. Marcus stood at the podium looking out at the assembled crowd. 73 fathers and their children sat in the front rows. Behind them, community members, attorneys, judges committed to reform, and in the very back, reporters documenting this moment of institutional transformation. My brother Jerome never got to see his son grow up. He lost that chance because of a broken system, because judges brought their biases to the bench instead of applying the law fairly. Marcus's voice carried across the plaza. But today we're building something in his name, something that says fathers matter, Black fathers matter. Their love for their children matters, and the system will protect that love instead of destroying it. He gestured to the building behind him. This courthouse will operate under federal oversight for the next 7 years. Every hearing will be recorded. Every decision will be reviewed for bias. Judges will undergo mandatory training on implicit bias and equal protection. And statistical analysis will be conducted quarterly to ensure no patterns of discrimination emerge. We can't give back the years those 73 families lost. We can't bring my brother back to his son. But we can make sure it never happens again. We can build a system that actually delivers justice. Marcus looked at Jaden, now 12 and sitting next to Maya. The Jerome Thompson Scholarship Fund has raised $1.2 million. It will support 30 children per year, kids who lost time with their fathers because of discrimination. We can't give them back that time, but we can invest in their futures. He paused, letting the moment breathe. Some people have called me a hero for exposing this corruption. I'm not a hero. I'm just a brother who couldn't save his sibling, a father who wanted his daughter to grow up in a more just world, a judge who took his oath seriously. The real heroes are the fathers who kept fighting for their children despite a system designed to defeat them. The real heroes are people like Rosa Martinez, who documented injustice for years hoping someone would care. The real heroes are the children who forgave their fathers for disappearing and not knowing it wasn't their father's choice. Marcus stepped back from the podium. This building is dedicated to their memory and their courage. May it serve as a reminder that justice delayed is not justice denied. It's just justice that requires someone to fight for it. The crowd applauded. Marcus returned to his seat beside Rosa, who'd become more than a colleague, more than an ally. They'd started dating formally 6 months ago. Moved slowly, carefully, both of them carrying wounds from their pasts. But it was working. "You did good," Rosa whispered. "We did good," Marcus corrected. A month later, on a Sunday afternoon, Marcus drove to Tybee Island with Maya, Jaden, and Rosa. The beach was crowded with families enjoying the late summer weather. They found a spot near the water, spread out blankets, watched the waves roll in. Maya and Jaden ran toward the surf, chasing seagulls and laughing with the unself-conscious joy of children who'd been given back their childhoods. Marcus watched them, feeling peace settle over him. "Do you ever think about going back to just being a judge?" Rosa asked. "No more crusades, no more investigations. Just appellate cases and legal opinions." Marcus considered the question. "Sometimes, but then I think about Jerome, about those 73 families, about how many other corrupt systems exist that nobody's investigating." He smiled. "I don't think I'm done fighting yet." "Good." Rosa leaned against his shoulder. "Because I'm not done helping." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the children play. After a while, Maya ran back, sand coating her legs, gap-toothed, smile wide. "Daddy Jaden says you really changed the world. Did you, Marcus pulled her close. "We changed our corner of it, baby. That's all anyone can do." "But you changed a big corner," Maya insisted. "Jaden got to come live with us. All those other kids got their dads back. That's important." "Yes, it is." Marcus kissed the top of her head. "Want to know a secret?" "What?" "The most important thing I ever did wasn't being a federal judge or exposing corruption or winning cases. The most important thing I ever did was being your dad." Maya hugged him tight, and Uncle Jerome's brother, and Jaden's uncle, and Rosa's. She paused, thinking. "What is Rosa?" Rosa laughed. "I'm working on that. Give me time." Jaden returned from the water, breathless and happy. "Can we stay until sunset?" Marcus checked his watch. They had hours until sunset, but no other obligations, no other demands. Just family and ocean in the possibility of a future built on foundations stronger than the past. Yeah, Jay, we can stay until sunset. As evening approached, the beach gradually emptied. Marcus watched the sun sink toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Beside him, Rosa took his hand. In front of them, Maya and Jaden built an elaborate sandcastle, working together with the easy cooperation of kids who'd become siblings in all but blood. His phone buzzed, a text from Judge Patricia Williams. Congratulations on the scholarship fund launch, and Keisha and Jerome would be proud. Marcus typed back, "Thank you for believing in this investigation. Couldn't have done it without your support." Patricia's response came immediately. "You did the work. I just gave you permission. That's what mentors do. We get out of the way and let our protégés exceed us." He pocketed the phone, returned his attention to the sunset. The sky burned brilliant orange, reflecting off the water in shimmering paths that looked like roads to somewhere better. "What are you thinking about?" Rosa asked quietly. "About how much has changed in 18 months. About the families that are healing. About whether this kind of change is sustainable or if the system will just find new ways to discriminate. You worry too much." Occupational hazard. Marcus squeezed her hand. "But you're right. Today isn't for worrying. Today is for being here with people I love, celebrating what we accomplished." Maya ran over, holding something in her cupped hands. "Look what I found." She opened her palms to reveal a sand dollar, perfect and unbroken. "Jaden says if you find a whole one, it means good luck." "Then we're going to have very good luck," Marcus said. "We've earned it." As the sun finally touched the horizon, Maya climbed into Marcus's lap. Jaden sat beside them, leaning against his uncle's shoulder. Rosa wrapped her arm around Marcus's waist. They sat together, watching the day end and the stars begin to appear. "Daddy," Maya's voice was soft, thoughtful. "Remember when you used to say love is bigger than the sky?" "I remember. I think it's bigger than that. I think it's bigger than the whole ocean." She gestured at the water stretching to the horizon. "Big enough to remember Mommy and Uncle Jerome and still have room for new people too." Marcus's throat tightened. His daughter's wisdom, delivered in the simple language of an 8-year-old, captured everything he'd been trying to articulate for 2 years. "You're right, baby. Love is infinite. It doesn't run out just because you share it with more people." "That's what Mommy would say." Maya settled back against his chest. "I think she'd like Rosa. And I think Uncle Jerome would be happy Jaden is with us." Jaden spoke up, voice quiet. "I know my dad would be happy. He used to say Uncle Marcus was the best person he knew, that he always fought for what was right." "Your dad was braver than me," Marcus said. "He kept loving you and fighting for you even when the system told him he wasn't good enough. That takes more courage than anything I did." "Maybe you're both brave," Rosa suggested. "Jerome for keeping faith when everything said he shouldn't. You for refusing to accept that what happened to him was acceptable." The last sliver of sun disappeared below the horizon. The sky deepened to purple, then indigo. The first stars appeared, pinpricks of light in the vast darkness. Marcus thought about his brother, gone 3 years now. Thought about Keisha, who'd been dead for 4 years, but whose influence shaped every decision he made. Thought about the 73 fathers who'd suffered injustice and the families who were healing because someone finally cared enough to fight. He thought about Felix Okonkwo serving 14 months in federal prison, his pension forfeited, his reputation destroyed. About Judge Harrington, who'd lost everything she'd built over 30 years on the bench. About Barbara Chen, who'd cooperated with investigators and now ran a reform social services agency committed to unbiased evaluations. Justice wasn't always clean. It didn't always feel satisfying. People's lives were complicated. Even villains had families, had histories, had moments where they'd made different choices and ended up somewhere else. But justice still mattered. Accountability still mattered. And the 73 families who'd been torn apart by systematic discrimination, they'd gotten something precious back. Not all the lost years, not all the missed moments, but a chance to rebuild, a chance to heal. That was worth 3 months as a janitor. Worth the threats, the danger, the risk. Worth every moment of the investigation that had consumed his life and nearly cost him everything. "Time to go," Marcus said softly. "It's getting cold." They gathered their things, shook sand from blankets packed up, the remnants of their beach day. As they walked toward the parking lot, Maya took Marcus's hand on one side, Jaden on the other. Rosa walked beside them close enough that their shoulders touched. Next week is the first scholarship ceremony, Rosa reminded him. 30 children receiving college funding. Are you prepared for your speech? I'll figure something out. Marcus smiled. Probably something about how the future is brighter when we refuse to accept injustice. That's good. Use that. They reached the car. Marcus helped the kids brush off sand, loaded their gear into the trunk. Before getting in the driver's seat, he paused, looking back at the beach one more time. The ocean continued its eternal rhythm, waves rolling in and pulling back, constant and unchanging. But the people on that beach, the families building sandcastles and chasing waves, they were different. Because of choices made, actions taken, courage summoned, when it would have been easier to look away. Marcus had looked away once. When Jerome first lost custody, when the hearing lasted 97 seconds, Marcus had told himself it was an isolated incident. One judge having a bad day, not worth federal investigation. But isolated incidents accumulated into patterns. Bad days became bad years, became bad decades. And looking away was its own form of injustice. He'd stopped looking away. He'd done something about it. And while he couldn't save his brother, couldn't give back the lost years to 73 families, he'd changed the system. Made it a little more, just a little more fair. That had to be enough. Marcus got in the car, started the engine. As they drove back toward Atlanta, Maya fell asleep in the back seat, head resting against Jaden's shoulder. Jaden stared out the window, watching the landscape blur past. Rosa reached across the center console, took Marcus's hand. You okay? Yeah. Marcus squeezed her fingers. Better than okay. For the first time in 3 years, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Where's that? Here, now, with people I love, doing work that matters, building a future that honors the past without being trapped by it. He glanced at her. That's all anyone can ask for, right? That's everything anyone could ask for. They drove in comfortable silence, the city lights of Atlanta appearing on the horizon. Somewhere in those lights, 73 families were living their second chances. Fathers tucking children into bed, reading bedtime stories, being present in ways they'd been denied for years. Somewhere in those lights, judges were learning from institutional failure, committing to reform, understanding that justice required constant vigilance against bias. Somewhere in those lights, children were growing up in a world slightly more just than the one that had failed their fathers. Marcus couldn't change the past, couldn't bring back Jerome or Keisha, couldn't erase the pain of 3 decades of systematic discrimination. But he'd change the future. And sometimes that was the only kind of justice available, not perfect, not complete, but real enough to matter. As they pulled into his driveway, Maya woke up disoriented and sleepy. Are we home? Yeah, baby, we're home. Good, she yawned. I had a dream about Mommy. She said she was proud of you. Marcus's breath caught. Yeah, she said you changed our corner of the world. Maya's eyes were already drifting closed again. Bigger than the sky, Daddy. That's how proud she is. Marcus carried his daughter inside, tucked her into bed, kissed her forehead. He checked on Jaden, who'd claimed the guest room, and already made it his own with posters and books and the purple bunny Jerome had given Maya years ago. Then he stood in the hallway between their rooms, guardian of 2 children who'd lost parents, survivor of a system that had tried to defeat him, architect of change that would outlive them all. Rosa appeared beside him, slipped her hand into his, ready for tomorrow. Tomorrow. Back to being a federal judge. No more investigations, no more janitor disguises, just regular appellate work. Marcus smiled. For now, until the next fight needs fighting. I wouldn't have it any other way. They stood together in the quiet house, listening to the sounds of children sleeping safely, feeling the weight of what they'd accomplished, and the promise of what might come next. Justice wasn't a destination, it was a direction. And Marcus Thompson had spent his life moving toward it, pulling others along, refusing to accept that broken systems were inevitable. He'd changed one corner of the world, made it more just for 73 families, built a scholarship fund that would help hundreds more, reformed an institution that had failed thousands. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough, not when injustice existed anywhere. But it was something, it was progress. It was proof that one person armed with courage and evidence and unwavering determination could move mountains, or at least could move the needle of justice a little closer to where it belonged. Marcus turned off the hallway light, followed Rosa to the living room. Tomorrow he'd return to his chambers, resume his regular caseload, be Judge Thompson instead of Marcus Jackson, the janitor. But he'd carry this victory with him, carry Jerome's memory. Carry the responsibility of knowing that fighting for justice wasn't optional. It was the only choice that mattered. The city of Atlanta spread out beyond his windows, millions of lives being lived in the spaces between streetlights. Some of those lives had been changed by what he'd done. Some would never know the corruption that had been exposed and eliminated. But they'd all benefit from a system slightly more just than the one that came before. And that, Marcus thought as he settled onto the couch beside Rosa, was worth everything. Worth the risk, worth the sacrifice, worth the 3 months as a janitor and the lifetime of fighting that had led to this moment. Justice had been delayed for 3 decades, but it hadn't been denied, not anymore.